Question number 4 wants us to do some combining functions. So the first one has f of g plus 0. So just remember that f of g plus 0 is the same thing as f of 0 plus g of 0. So I got to plug 0 into f. That'd be 1 over 0 minus 25. G of 0, plug 0 in for x there, would be 0 minus 7, so that'd be negative 7. If you want to add those together, so f of g plus, let's see, we can get a common denominator here. We got to grab a calculator here. What is 7 times 25? I think it's 175, but I don't trust my math here. It is 175. So you would go negative 1 over 25 plus a negative 175 over 25. Add those, be negative 176 over 25. I think I said 75. Sorry, it's 25. Okay, that should be my answer there. And again, I could write that as a mixed number or a fraction. Like that would work. Okay, the second part wants me to find f of g of 1. So f of g of 1, I'm going to write it this way. F of g of 1 means I plug 1 into g first, and whatever answer I get back out, I plug that into f. So if I plug 1 into g, I end up with f of, if I plug 1 in, 1 minus 7 is a negative 6. I got to take that negative 6 and plug it into f. That'd be 1 over negative 6 squared. That's a 36 minus 25, so it's at 11. So you get some crazy answers there as far as the fractions go, but not too hard, just adding the two functions and doing the composition. Now this is the trickiest part, I think. The last part right here says write the domain of the function f of g of x using interval notation. So to kind of explain this, remember when we plug a number in for x, it first goes into g, and then the answer I get back out goes into f. So when you're finding the domain, I start by checking what is the domain of g, because whatever number I plug in has to go into g first. So if I come up here, the domain of g, the two things I look for are fractions and square roots. There aren't any. So the domain is all real numbers. Okay, so there's no restriction there. The second thing I check is I check the domain of f of g of x, of the resulting, of my answer. So let's figure out what f of g of x is equal to. So g of x is x minus 7. So I plug in the x minus 7 for g of x. Now I come up to f, and in place of the x, I plug in x minus 7. So this is f of g of x. So I've got to find the domain of that. Well, we do have something to worry about here, right? We don't want that. We don't want the denominator to equal 0. We've got a fraction. So we just talked about that, right? Back on, was that question 1 or question 2? So what I'm going to do is take my denominator and find out when does it equal 0. We don't want it to equal 0. We're just going to solve that equation. So add the 25 over. Take the square root of both sides. Plus or minus the square root of 25. Add the 7 over. Square root of 25 is 5. So 7 plus or minus 5. So we know that x cannot equal, I guess this is what we didn't want x to equal, 12 if I go 7 plus 5, or 2 if I go 7 minus 5. Okay, so the domain of f of g of x is x cannot equal 12 or 2. Now we want to write that with the interval notation. So we're going to say goes from negative infinity until I get to 2. Does not include 2, so parentheses. Then goes from 2 to 12. Does not include 12. So that, this is a really long way of saying this, is x cannot equal 2 or 12. Hey, let's put these answers in. Make sure we got the right thing, what we wanted there. All right, so we had negative 176 over 25 and 1/11. Negative 176 over 25. And the other one was 1/11. With our domain then, we said it went from negative infinity until we got to 2. Okay. Then it went from 2 to 12. Oops, don't forget the union sign there. And then we went from 12 to infinity. All right, let's check our answers. Looks good.